Hi, welcome to Module 1 of Team Fiddler. In this module, we're going to look at a very powerful tool used in mathematics, but elsewhere as well, that requires play. The way to use it, you actually have to play. It consists in this to transform one problem from one space where it is hard to solve into another space where it's actually easy to do. Sounds abstract, right? But let me explain to you. You remember those, you've heard of these things, the memory palace, where you take a long, long list of boring things that you need to remember and you turn into a space where you have objects in it and it's easy to remember. So you go from text space to a space, that kind of transformation. Okay, so the memory peg for today is the snow day. And picture yourself, you're a 7-year-old, you wake up late because there has been 24 inches of snow falling overnight, and when there's a big snowstorm, a big snowfall, somehow everybody wakes up late. And it's Saturday, no need to rush. So your mission number one in life after breakfast is to go play in that snow. And mom says to you, yeah, well, sure, because she knows that as kids play in the snow and they get extremely warm and they get a lot of exercise, they don't catch cold in winter. So she says, yes, sure, but you need to have breakfast, then you need to brush your teeth, then you need to make your bed, and then I want you to write on grandma's card because it's her birthday soon and you have to write something nice to her, say hi to her and wish her a good day, good birthday. So here's what your Eisenhower matrix of tasks to do today might look like. So here you have a case of actually a decision problem turned into a geometry problem, and we all know it's effective. Now, on the news, we got a drama because the annual 2020 snowball fight has been canceled. In the words of Adi Ignatius, why we're stop ranking CEOs. That's a mighty snowball fight. Each year, the CEO on our list were overly male and largely white, provoking criticism for lack of diversity. And each year, we explain why this is the case. Most of the S&P 1200 companies we analyze were led by white CEOs. Now, the number one CEO on the 2019 list was actually a Spaniard. That's somebody who speaks Spanish. And so, yeah, Visigoths were whites, but there's more diversity than this guy just shows. Can we solve that problem and get more snowball fight? So this is the task today. Before we go, I'd like you to imagine you're on the snowfield. You and your buddies. We're together, about 100 buddies, and we're going to have the major, biggest, meanest snowball fight of the year. Right, 7-year-old, you don't think century. And how do you make your teams? So typically, We all have been kids. Uh, you flip a coin, the two leaders flip a coin, and the one who wins takes the first pick, and then the next one takes the next pick, and then the first one takes the third pick, and it goes on like this in alternate. When an adult is in charge, a coach, sport coach, for instance, he want the game to be as intense as possible, which means the teams have to be balanced. And so will order all the kids in height from tallest to shortest, and then we'll go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 until we're done, and then we start the game. When HBR did its ranking a couple of years ago, started in 2014, they had ranking from best guy, which actually is rank 1, to 100th. We can't say least guy because actually to be on that 100 list is actually quite an achievement by itself. But it goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you can figure out which one is which. Who to go for if you're looking for a CEO. So now let me show you a graph. And I apologize because I have some really, really, really smart ex-colleagues from PNNL who were totally averse to anything in mathematics. So I understand this may be your case. I'm going to try to make this fun. I'm going to be geometric. It's going to be no math. But it's still Excel spreadsheet. So please bear with me. I think what you're going to learn is worth the discomfort. This is not math. This is really a park. And at the bottom, you see the civic numbers on Thornton Avenue. 0, 50, 100, 150, 200, 250. And the HBR coach is sitting at the corner of Paseo Padre. And he asks the players, in this case the CEOs, let the ones with the smallest HBA score line up in front of me, he's looking upwards, and spread out to my right an increasing number of HBR score, because he wants to pick then first the one in front of him, and then he moves on to the right and keeps picking up people, like an adult coach would do with junior soccer or baseball. And on Paseo Padre, the green coaches say they're actually facing right in this case, and they say to the players, those with the lowest green score line up in front of us and then spread out to our left an increasing number of green score. So you picture this, you have this field, put yourself where you want to be, and now they're going to make a decision on how they gather the team, who they pick first and who they pick last. Because there'll be negotiation, and they want to know who's their top pick and so forth. So HBR has been doing this for a long time, 2014, so 9 years, no, 5 years. And their strategy is to move this cursor and pick the one between the 700 and the nearest 800, and then the one nearest 700, and they keep on moving, and that is the way they would pick up their players. The green coaches have a different strategy. Let me put this about straight. In about straight is a keyword here. The green coaches say, well, wait, we want this guy first. Oh, this is not really not straight. Let me put it straight first. we want this guy down there near the 150 first because his green score is almost zero. That's valuable, that's important. And they want to move on the line up and pick up players as the move lines up and take this one, the last one, even though HBR would just love to have that guy. So there's kind of a stalemate there, isn't it? Now, HBR has been in the business for a long, long time, so they say, wait a minute, this is not the way we do things here. They're going to split the difference. This is what's called split the difference. They're going to say, we're going to move it our way, but we're going to leave you a little bit of wheat space so you can actually get in people earlier on the list. We're going to move your players up a little bit, move the list here, and then bingo, you get this string guy first, even though he's not as high, as low as an HBR score. Excuse me for tripping here. He's not such a low HBR score, but that's fair. We have a mechanism and we can picking things up like this. And that still means that people are picked up in the HBR kind of way, and it's not, they'll say this is not fair. So what is it to do? In this picture, we've been arguing on whether the line should be, the cursor should be vertical or horizontal so long that all the grayed out players have been taken. And what remains is the top line up there. And that will really illustrate something about negotiation that actually is essential. If any team is to be successful, you must be able to negotiate within your team. Let's say we take the proposed strategy by HBR and we move the cursor down this line. Well, you see we're picking up all the players in the sequences that pleases HBR. If on the other hand we take a horizontal cursor, you see that we pick up all the players in the order pleasing the green guys. It's either one or the other. Either one team is 100% happy or the other team is 100% happy. The only exception is if we take this line as our metric. There's no one to choose, no one to choose, no one to choose, and bam, almost everyone is a good choice. And then you cannot choose anymore because there's no differentiator. What you can do is you can add a third judge. That's a possibility. Sometime in real life, if you have too many judges, you'll get in that situation as well. So you need to be wise about your criteria for judging. If you have too many criteria or if they're conflicting. Basically, and it's kind of very nice, you need to use the Eisenhower matrix on your decision criteria. Take the ones which are urgent and take the ones that are important. So this is basically why splitting the difference doesn't work. The next step is actually how to break the deadlock. And we're also going to look at graphs because it makes it just easier to work with geometry than to work with words and decision making. The technique is, I believe, the black swan of Chris Voss. And it's quite nice to actually see it visually. So let's go for that. we plan to select the red player. Now, if you look at the box on top of it, all the gray players, the grayed out players, or the blued out players, have both a higher green score and a greater HBR score, which means that we're not so much interested as in them if we picked the red player. They may be excellent, but we would actually want to compete for the red player before we compete for any one of the other players. So let's move on to the next step. Let me move you here. Now we've selected the one just on the list near the zero line, zero vector vertical line, near 800 Paseo Padre. And doing this, we basically eliminated two other players from consideration, from bargaining for. Because if we get the red player, we're not so much interested in getting those two players. And we can go forward one step further, and we've removed two more players. And I apologize, I'm doing this by hand. It's a little bit of work going on my computer, it means it's a bit shaky. But anyways, you see it here, we had a third player, and then we've eliminated a lot of more players. And we can go this way. I'll spare you the details, the count, up to the final magnificent 7, which are the 7 players. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are the players we actually need to make a decision. We don't need to, we can bargain. That's where we find black swans, because the player that HBR loves and the player that the Greens coaches love may have something in common that we didn't know about. And we don't need, from our perspective, we don't need to fight 93 players who are all waiting to be chosen first. Actually, we have to focus on those 7. That's a lot of reduction. It's much better than the 20-80 rules, if you think of it. It's a different variant of the 80-20 rule. Before we go, I'd like to show you one thing also. You see how you can use the Eisenhower matrix to build an Eisenhower matrix. But the selection process we've seen so far, we can also use it to progress as we select players. So going back to the first player we're looking at that we could afford within our budget, and this is the guy we wanted. Well, let's say we didn't get him. What's next? Well, we can look at the rectangle that's based at this player, and then we would look for possible replacement around the border of that rectangle. And that's exactly the process we've been following before. So let that be my last comment on this thing. Hi. Getting our snowball fight has been quite a piece of work. I have thank you for sticking with us. The main message of this module is that of going from one representation of a problem where the problem is hard to solve into another one, other representation where the problem is easy to solve. It can be from algebra to geometry, from geometry to algebra. It can be from legalese to geometry. It can be from legalese to accounting. those things happen all the time, but in order to be effective, they have to come from a joyful mind. You have to be playful. Those moments of transition happen when you don't expect them. You can't really control them. It's just suddenly kind of a flash. You say, oh yes, I know what to do with that. And the joy of it is so great that actually it's worth all the trouble before. But you have to be playful if you're going to actually make that kind of transformation. So please play with those things. Try to see in your day, is there any places where actually you're using the Eisenhower matrix, this important, urgent thing. Try to add, if you do, try to add the other dimension. If you're used to the Eisenhower matrix, try to add the save time. Sometimes something is neither important nor urgent, but it saves you so much time that is actually worth doing. So that's that. Thank you very much for staying with me. Look forward to seeing you in the next module. In the meantime, have a great time. Take care. Bye.